Managing your money can sometimes feel like a never-ending chore,
Oh, absolutely.
especially when you're trying to keep track of everything, review all your spending, and make budgets every month.
Ugh, don't remind me.
Right. But, what if I told you there's a way to make your money work for you automatically?
Okay, now that's something I'd like to hear more about.
Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're exploring Ramit Sethi's I Will Teach You to Be Rich, and we're going to uncover all the secrets to automating your finances.
Yeah, I've always been intrigued by Sethi's approach. It seems less about obsessing over every penny and more about setting up smart systems that do the heavy lifting for you.
That's exactly it. He really emphasizes linking your accounts, setting up those automatic transfers, and then, making the system work for you and your specific needs.
Right, like tailoring it to your own life.
Okay, so it's more involved than just setting up, those basic automatic bill payments, right?
Mhm.
It's about a totally different way of looking at your finances.
Definitely. And the foundation of this whole system is linking all your accounts together. Sethi says your checking account should be the central hub.
Okay, like the grand central station of your money.
Exactly. That's where everything flows in and out of.
Now I get it. But why is direct deposit so important for this to work? I mean, don't most people get paid that way these days anyway?
Well, yeah, but it's more than just convenience. Direct deposit ensures that money's flowing into your system on a regular schedule.
So it's like that predictability that really makes the automation work smoothly.
Exactly. And it's actually the first step in creating that conscious spending mindset that Sethi talks about.
Okay, conscious spending, that sounds kind of fancy. It's just a different way to say budgeting.
It's similar, but it's like a more mindful approach,
Mm-hmm.
You're aware of where your money's going, but you don't have to stress about every single transaction.
So you're not chained to a spreadsheet all the time.
Nope. It's more about having clear goals and letting the system automatically work toward those goals for you.
I'm definitely interested to learn more. So say I'm ready to give this whole automation thing a try. How do I actually link all my accounts together?
Well, most banks make it pretty simple these days with their online platforms. You'll usually see options like transfer, link accounts, or something like external transfers.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And if you run into any trouble, you can always call your bank's customer service. They're usually pretty good at walking you through the steps.
Yeah, those customer service folks can be lifesavers sometimes.
Totally. But I do have one question. I'm always a little nervous about security when it comes to linking all my accounts online. Is that a valid concern?
Definitely a valid concern. Security is super important, and Sethi actually emphasizes this a lot in his book. Luckily, banks have really stepped up their security measures, like using two-factor authentication.
Two-factor authentication. Can you break that down for those of us who aren't exactly tech wizards?
Sure. It's basically an extra layer of security beyond your username and password.
Yeah.
Usually you'll get a unique code sent to your phone or email, and you have to enter that code to confirm it's really you.
So it makes it way harder for anyone to hack into your accounts.
Exactly.
Okay, that definitely puts my mind at ease a bit. So we've tackled linking the accounts and we've covered the security stuff. What's next? How do we get this money flowing automatically?
That's where it gets really strategic. You need to create a clear timeline for your money, like a rhythm that makes sure your bills are paid, your savings are growing, and your investments are on track. Sethi even lays out a sample schedule in his book.
Ooh, I love a good schedule.
All right, so let's say you get your paycheck on the first of every month.
Okay.
Sethi suggests making your 401k contribution right away, like on the 2nd.
So your money has more time to grow.
Yep. Then on the 5th, you would put money into your Roth IRA and any other savings goals you have.
Hold on, I'm already a little lost. Could you remind me what those are?
Sure. A 401k is a retirement savings plan a lot of employers offer. You contribute money before taxes, and it grows until you retire.
Okay, I think I remember that from our last deep dive.
And a Roth IRA is an individual retirement account where you contribute money after taxes are taken out, but then the money grows tax-free.
Got it. So both are for retirement, but they're set up a little differently.
Exactly. And by contributing to them early in the month, you're giving your money more time to potentially grow.
I see the strategy there.
Yeah.
You're taking care of your future self right off the bat.
That's the idea. Now, where do those pesky bills fit into all this?
Don't worry, they're not forgotten. Sethi recommends paying all your bills on the 7th of the month.
Okay, so that gives you a little cushion after getting paid to make sure you have enough to cover everything.
Exactly. And it helps prevent those late fees.
This is starting to sound like a pretty smooth system. But what about people who don't have a regular paycheck every month, like freelancers or people with unpredictable incomes? Can they still use this system?
That's a great question, and Sethi actually addresses that directly. He emphasizes building a 3-month emergency buffer.
A 3-month emergency buffer. Why that specific time frame?
Well, data shows that it usually takes people around 3 months to find a new job if they lose theirs unexpectedly.
That makes sense.
And it's also a good cushion for those unexpected expenses that life throws at us.
Yeah, like car repairs or medical bills.
Exactly. So that buffer becomes your safety net. You can keep your automated system running even if your income dips.
I'm starting to understand how this all fits together. It's not just about automation. It's about creating a solid financial foundation. And that 3-month buffer is a big part of it.
You got it. Having that buffer gives you peace of mind, knowing you're prepared for those ups and downs.
Okay, so now I'm really intrigued. But before we get into the specifics of how to use that emergency buffer, I think it's a good time to pause and recap what we've learned so far.
Yeah, sounds good.
And maybe address any questions our listeners might have at this point. What do you think?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, so we've got our accounts all linked up. We have a schedule for our money, and we even have that 3-month emergency buffer set up.
Yeah, we've laid some solid groundwork.
We have. But how do we actually use that buffer when our income takes a dip? You know, for those of us who don't have that steady paycheck coming in every month.
Right. Well, let's imagine you're a freelancer and you have a slower month with fewer projects coming in.
Okay, yeah, I've been there.
And you don't make enough to cover all of your automated transfers for your savings and investments.
Right.
That's exactly when you dip into your emergency buffer. It's like a bridge that keeps your financial flow consistent even when your income fluctuates.
So it's like a temporary loan from yourself.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
a great way to put it. But then, of course, you don't want to drain that buffer completely, right?
Right. So how do we make sure we refill it?
Well, when you have a month where you make more money than usual, that's when you focus on replenishing that buffer back up to its full 3-month capacity.
So it's like a cycle of using it when needed and then filling it back up when you can.
Exactly. It helps you handle those income swings without sacrificing your long-term financial goals.
This is making me realize how much mental energy I waste stressing about slow months. You know, it's exhausting.
I totally get it. And that's one of the big things Sethi talks about, how the system can actually free up so much mental space.
Yeah. It sounds almost too good to be true.
I know, right? But it's true. When you have a system that's handling those routine money tasks for you, it minimizes those moments of financial panic.
So you're not constantly checking your bank balance.
Exactly. And you're not worrying about whether you can afford things. You're just less stressed.
You know, I've always been a little skeptical of those sayings that money can't buy happiness.
Yeah.
But this sounds a lot like peace of mind, which is pretty darn close to happiness, if you ask me.
I agree with you there. So are you ready to dive into some of the ways we can tweak this system?
I am. What does tweaking actually mean? Where do we even begin?
Well, tweaking is basically personalizing the system. It's not one size fits all, you know? Sethi wants us to adapt the system to fit our own specific circumstances and goals.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Well, the first step is to honestly assess your current situation. How often do you get paid? What are your fixed expenses versus your variable expenses? What are your short-term and long-term financial goals?
Okay, so you really have to take a deep dive into your own finances.
Oh, do. And once you have a clear picture of your financial landscape, you can start making those adjustments.
Okay, so give me some examples of these tweaks. What would that look like in real life?
Okay, let's take someone who gets paid twice a month instead of once.
All right.
They might want to split their automated system into 2 mini cycles.
2 mini cycles.
Yeah. So the first paycheck could go toward essential bills and fixed expenses.
Okay, makes sense.
And then the second paycheck could be for savings, investments, and any fun money they've allocated for themselves.
That's really smart. It adapts the system without changing the whole concept.
Exactly. Now, what about people who have irregular income, like truly unpredictable?
Yeah, it seems like that would be a nightmare to try to automate.
It definitely presents a unique challenge. But even then, you can still apply the basic principles of Sethi's approach.
Okay, so what would that look like?
Well, the key is to really understand your average monthly income and expenses over a period of time.
So you'd need to track everything for a while.
Exactly. Track your income and spending for, let's say, 6 months, and you'll start to see patterns and get a feel for your financial baseline.
And then you could use that average to set up your automated transfers.
Right, and you'd still have your 3-month buffer to handle any months where your income dips below that average.
So it's like this system can work for pretty much anyone, no matter their income situation.
That's the beauty of it. It's flexible.
I'm really starting to appreciate that. But I have to admit, letting go of control and putting my finances on autopilot kind of makes me nervous.
Yeah, I get it. A lot of people feel that way at first. But think of it this way. You're not giving up control. You're actually gaining more control in the long run.
How so?
Well, by automating all those routine tasks, you free yourself up to focus on the bigger financial decisions in your life.
Oh, I see. So instead of being reactive, you're being proactive.
Exactly. You're making conscious choices about your money instead of just reacting to bills and expenses as they come up.
That's a really interesting way to look at it. But let's be realistic for a second. Doesn't this whole system require you to be at least a little bit tech savvy?
That's a fair point. And online platforms definitely make it easier, but they're not the only option.
Okay, good.
A lot of banks still offer those phone-based banking services where you can set up automatic transfers and bill payments over the phone.
Right. You can always go into a branch and talk to a real person.
Exactly. So find what works for you and your comfort level with technology.
So no excuses, right? Everyone can give this a try.
Exactly. What I really like about this approach is that it's not just about the numbers, it's about changing your whole mindset towards money.
Yeah. Creating a system that reflects your values and your goals.
Exactly. So tell me, have you ever tried implementing this automated system yourself?
I haven't. I've always been a little hesitant to fully commit to something like this. But what about you?
I actually started using a version of Sethi's system a few years ago when I was switching from a regular job to freelance work.
Oh, wow. So you were going through a big income shift.
Yeah, big time. And to be honest, I was super hesitant at first. I was worried about losing control and flexibility.
Makes sense. What changed your mind?
Once I got everything set up and got over that initial learning curve, the benefits were just undeniable. The biggest thing for me was the reduction in stress, financial stress.
That seems to be a common theme with this system. Everyone talks about how it just lifts a weight off their shoulders.
For sure. But I'll admit there were some unexpected challenges along the way.
Oh, like what?
Well, the hardest part for me was actually letting go of those old habits,
What do you mean?
Like I still found myself constantly checking my accounts and obsessing over every little transaction, even though I had a system in place.
So you had to consciously train yourself to trust the system.
Yeah, it was like breaking a bad habit, but it was so worth it.
I bet. Knowing everything's running smoothly in the background must be so freeing.
Totally. So speaking of running smoothly, let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in these money conversations. Your credit score.
Ah, yes. Sethi talks about that in his book, and I think it's a really important piece of the puzzle.
It really is. And, automating your finances can have a really positive impact on your credit score over time.
Really? Tell me more about that.
Well, think about it. With automatic bill pay, you're pretty much eliminating the risk of late payments,
Right.
which can really hurt your score. And by paying your bills on time, every time you're showing those credit bureaus that you're responsible.
Yeah, it's like you're building up your credit reputation.
Exactly. And beyond payment history, automation can also help with credit utilization.
Now, remind me what credit utilization is again.
Sure. Credit utilization is basically how much of your available credit you're using at any given time. And by automating your savings and your debt payments, you're less likely to overspend and max out your credit cards.
Which can ding your credit score.
Exactly. So it's not just about convenience and less stress. It's about setting yourself up for financial success in the long run.
I'm really starting to see the big picture here. But what about those unexpected expenses that always seem to pop up in life? How does this system handle those?
Well, that's where that 3-month emergency buffer really proves its worth. It's there to absorb those unexpected costs, like car repairs or medical bills, without throwing your whole financial plan off track.
It's like having a safety net.
Exactly. You can handle those situations without going into debt or sacrificing your long-term goals.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But doesn't this require a lot of discipline?
What do you mean?
Well, what's stopping someone from dipping into that emergency buffer for things that aren't really emergencies, like a vacation or a new gadget?
That's where that conscious spending mindset we talked about earlier comes back into play. It's about being intentional with your money and knowing the difference between a need, a want, and a true emergency.
So you have to be honest with yourself about your spending.
Exactly. And sometimes that can be tough, but what if someone isn't ready to go all in with full automation? What are some smaller steps they can take to get started?
Yeah, it's a good question. Baby steps, right?
Exactly. You don't have to automate everything all at once.
So what would you recommend?
Well, start with one area of your finances that feels particularly stressful or burdensome. Maybe it's that credit card bill that always seems to sneak up on you.
Or maybe it's that feeling of guilt every time you buy something you don't really need.
Exactly. Pick one area and set up automatic payments for it. Or if saving is a struggle, try automating a small transfer to your savings account every week.
So those little wins can build momentum.
Precisely. As you start to see the benefits, less stress, more control, even some positive changes in your credit score, you'll naturally want to automate more and more.
It's like a positive feedback loop.
You got it. But, I'm sure there are still some people out there who are thinking, this sounds great, but doesn't automation make you less aware of your spending?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I would actually argue that it makes you more aware in a more meaningful way.
How so?
Well, instead of getting lost in the weeds of tracking every single dollar, you're free to focus on the bigger picture. You can analyze your overall spending patterns and make adjustments to your system based on your priorities.
So you're moving from micromanaging to macromanaging.
Exactly. It's about being intentional and using your money as a tool to build the life you want.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But before we dive into that bigger picture of financial freedom, why don't we take a break here and see if you have any thoughts or questions about what we've covered so far. We've talked about a lot of details, linking accounts, tweaking the system for different incomes, all that stuff.
Yeah, we have.
But what I'm really taking away from this is that it's all about taking control of your money, but not in a restrictive way.
Right.
It's about empowering yourself to actually make conscious decisions about your money and, your life.
I think that's a great point. It's like shifting our whole perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like we're stuck, with all these financial obligations, we can actually use automation as a tool to help us achieve the things that we really care about.
It's like we're taking the driver's seat and, we're not just reacting to things. We're actually designing a system that helps us reach our goals, big and small.
I love that, designing a system. That's a great way to think about it because it puts you in control.
And it brings us to, I think, the most exciting part of all of this, financial freedom.
Yes.
It's a term everyone uses, but what does it actually mean to you?
That's a good question. For me, it's not just about having a ton of money sitting in your bank account.
Yeah.
It's about having the flexibility and the peace of mind to make choices that align with your values, right? Whether that's spending time with your family or traveling or pursuing some passion project or, whatever is important to you.
Yeah, or just enjoying life without constantly stressing about money.
Exactly. It's about being present.
So it's about more than just the numbers. It's about a feeling, right? A feeling of freedom and security.
Yeah. And moving away from that scarcity mindset, that so many of us get caught up in.
Right, that feeling of never having enough.
Exactly. This system helps you move to a place of abundance, knowing you have a plan. And that plan's working for you and you can just relax and enjoy life.
Okay, I'm totally on board with that.
Yeah.
But I'm sure there are still some people listening who are like, yeah, this sounds amazing, but it's not realistic for me.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
I have a family, I have bills, I have real-world problems. What would you say to those people?
Well, everyone's situation is different, but the beauty of this system is that the principles apply to everyone, right? It's not about having the perfect income or a perfect budget. It's about taking those first steps to create something that works for you, for your specific circumstances.
So it's about starting somewhere no matter where you are.
Exactly. Don't get caught up in trying to be perfect. Just start taking action.
So progress over perfection.
Yes, 100%.
Okay, so I'm sold. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's one practical piece of advice that you would give someone who's ready to start, implementing this whole system?
I would say pick one small, achievable goal.
Okay.
And focus on that. Maybe it's setting up automatic payments for one bill.
Okay.
Or maybe it's automating a tiny transfer to your savings every week.
Right.
Just something small, something that you can actually do and stick to.
Build that momentum.
Exactly. Once you see those early successes, you'll be motivated to keep going.
I love that. You know what I'm taking away from this is that financial freedom isn't this far off destination. It's a journey,
Yeah.
And it starts with these small steps, building a system that works for you, not against you.
And it's about so much more than just money.
Right.
It's about aligning your finances with your values and creating a life that you love, a life that's fulfilling.
That's a great point. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into automated finances.
It was my pleasure.
I think we've all learned a lot today, and hopefully we're all feeling a little bit more empowered to take control of our money and our lives.
Yes, absolutely. Remember, financial freedom is within reach for everyone. It starts with a willingness to learn and adapt.
That's right. And a little bit of automation can go a long way.
It really can.